Hello. Today I want to talk some more about the differences between the movie versions of The Lord of the Rings and the book versions. And this is primarily where I think the movies get it a little bit wrong and kind of disappointingly wrong and kind of ruin the characters a little bit. Today I want to talk about some of the people of the Rohirrim, the writers of Rohan, mainly uh, Theodin, Eowyn, and Wormtounge. So, starting with Theodin, the depiction of Theodin in the movie started out great. I thought him being old and withered and wizened and bent over, really it kind of painted a good picture of you know and consistent with the book. I thought it was good, and the when he suddenly changed and grew younger. I mean, I thought it was cool the little battle with Gandalf and Saruman uh, in the movie was really cool how they did that. Like he was almost possessed by Saruman, but it doesn't indicate that in the book. But that he was lied to and he was brought down by those lies and worn out by them. I think is more of a metaphor than actual possession by Saruman. But it was cool how they did that. But one of the things with the movies in the Middle Earth, they didn't magic wasn't so obvious. When magic did occur it was subtle, and the transformation of Theoden back to a younger man, still fairly up in years, but it that just to me it wasn't canon. So I didn't appreciate that. He could have just had him, as described in the book. He stands up straighter. He finds his strength. He becomes hale again. He grabs his sword and finds that he can still swing his sword, and that just to me in the book, the kind of I don't know, or in the movie, it kind of it didn't. I don't know. It's probably a little petty, but I didn't like that much. The Theoden was also actually, he cared about his people. They made it seem like Aragorn and Gandalf were just pushing him around, telling him what to do, and he'd bow up and stuff. But he knew, how to defend his people, and he took everybody to Helm's Deep for a reason, not because he was scared and running away. It was because it was the most defensible place where he could get to. And of course, they lost a lot of men at the Westfold. They had Erkenbrand was scattered, and that was actually who Gandalf went and rode off with. So another thing that was Eomer was at Helm's Deep, not out running around. It was Erkenbrand, but of course for the movie they want to make it a little more cinematic, I guess. But and another thing that they kind of just diminish the friendship between Eomer and Aragorn. It's like they had a strong bond almost from the get go, and they didn't really touch on that in the movies at all. So it's kind of disappointing. But Theoden wasn't he wasn't a pushover. He was a king. He knew his mind, and he wasn't bitter and kind of waffling all the time as they portrayed in the movie. So I was kind of disappointed with that, but I did like Bernard Hill's performance, and I think he was perfectly cast. It's just they could have done a little bit more subtle with the reverse aging thing. It could have been a little more subtle, I think, because he was actually pretty old when he looked probably like he did when they first saw him. that's about how old he was. so, uh, so that's one thing. And next is I'm going to save Eowyn for last, but Wormtongue, I think Wormtongue was excellently cast. Brad Dourif did a great job as Wormtongue. I really, really appreciated that. But one thing that they did that I thought, and this is overall in the overall arcing story, is they didn't give his redemption arc, and he does have a redemption arc, not just killing Saruman, which uh, in the movie, it was this everything was over so quickly, and Saruman's going to be another episode of this, but killing off Saruman so early just it ruined it ruined the continuing of Saruman's journeys, the scouring of the Shire, and again Wormtongue's redemption arc. And it just kind of just took all that away, which is really kind of unfortunate. So if you read the books, if you've only seen the movies, you should read the books, and you can find out more about Wormtongue. And it wasn't a great redemption arc, but he did have a little bit of a redemption at the end. Um, it's interesting how it worked out. And he, actually, kind of, he, this is going to be spoilers. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, if you haven't read the book, I don't know what to tell you, but like his redemption at the end, the spilling of Saruman's blood was basically, it would have cursed whoever spilled his blood, and the hobbits were loth to do that because they knew that, or at least Frodo understood that, we can't kill Saruman. So Wormtongue does it for him, and it's like that, it kind of redeems him a little bit from the wickedness that he'd fallen into big time with hanging out with Saruman. But he kind of took that curse that would have happened. The land may have been cursed if they had spilled Saruman's blood. The hobbits, instead, Wormtongue did it, and so it didn't affect Hobbiton in any significant way. So that it he did kill Saruman at the end, but it was a lot later, in the story. And I think it meant more if you follow the whole story. So, and then finally, I want to talk about Eowyn and just the way they portray her. I mean, I did like Miranda Otto. I thought she was good Eowyn. I think book wise, maybe could have been someone more stately, maybe a little more tall. I guess they call that taller, maybe a little taller. And just more sure of herself. They had her like kind of as a waif. She did have some sword skills, but she definitely was not soft in the book. She was a shield maiden. She had she was stern and fair and stern, and she was not lovesick. She did think she loved Aragorn, but she may have loved the idea of who he was, as a he could be her captain, because she really she was um, you know made to fight, basically, not to be a shield maiden. And so she was kind of the not meant to be a female, I guess, but not in a weird way. This is just a strong woman that wanted to prove herself. So, and I always thought it was interesting in the book. Wormtongue delivers the classic line that's really snarky and cruel about talking to Eowyn and being in a hutch, to trammel some wild thing, and the way he says it is just so cruel, and it's really interesting. In the book, it's Gandalf who says it, and he's telling Eomer about the reasons that she that she rode with the company, and that's actually happens in the Return of the King, not the Two Towers, when they're in the houses of healing. So he says, "Thank you that Wormtongue had only poison for Theodin's ears, dotard. What is the house of Eorl but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek, and the brats roll on the floor among their dogs? Have you not heard those words before?" Saruman spoke them. The teacher of Wormtongue, though I do not doubt Wormtongue at home wrapped their meaning in terms more cunning. But he says here that line is like, but who knows what she spoke into the darkness, alone in the bitter watches of the night, when all her life seemed to shrink, or seemed shrinking, and the walls of her bower closing about her, a hutch to trammel some wild thing in. So it's really not, meant to be a little statement of snark and ridicule. Is a form of, a statement of pity, for her being, trapped in the body of a woman, and she wanted to, she wanted glory, for, like her brother and father and uncle. And so it's interesting that when that line came out of Wormtongue, I was like, that doesn't sound right. But I mean, it's excellently delivered, and it did fit the movie, but it really was kind of a dig on Eowyn. And I think they did her a disservice. She was a lot more proud, a lot more stern, probably a lot more skilled than they portrayed. She did fight as Dernhelm in the battle, and was, I don't know. I mean, it was good what they did with Eowyn in the movie, but I think it could have been a little better. Anyway, this is just minor gripes. I did. I think that it's interesting too. They didn't really play up the reason I don't think that she was in love with Aragorn per se, is because she just felt that Aragorn was someone that she could respect, and there weren't many men like that. And it's interesting that at the end in the House of Healing, she did meet another man who did meet that criteria as well, and softened her up a little, and which was Faramir. So Faramir probably be a whole episode to himself, the disservice they did to him. So I'll probably talk about him later as well. We'll talk about his family and the differences with Boromir, Denethor, and Faramir at a later time. So that's all I got for today.